Anyway, having material on your phone, having it on your phone now, but not shared with anyone is also prosecutable under the new law due to be implemented this summer. A penalty for an offence will be up to 5 years imprisonment. 5 years imprisonment for having it on your phone and not sharing it with anyone. And opponents of the criminal justice bill have raised concerns the changes go too far and will stifle free speech. That was our post online last night. We wondered what your thoughts were. But right now, let's get the thoughts of Sarah Hardiman, who is spokesperson for Free Speech Ireland and back on line one. Morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Neil. Thank you for having me.
It's Mick, actually, but don't worry. Free Speech Ireland is an organisation established to preserve the constitutionally guaranteed right to freedom of speech and expression, sort of like the First Amendment in the USA. Is that correct?
Well, the Irish Constitution has a slight qualification in free speech. So while it does embody the essence of free speech and insists that it is important that the public have the right to an opinion, there is a slight restriction under the Irish Constitution, and it does say that for the public good and for moral order, there can be restrictions. Now, we see that best in the 1989 legislation, which is the current legislation known as the Prohibition of Incitement to Hatred Act 1989.
Okay, we have laws in place under Section 10, I believe, on harassment.
Yes, well, I suppose it's more important in the context of the bill to go into the background of the 1989 Act, because this is where the bill that's going through the Seanad is important. The bill going through the Seanad would see the repeal of the 1989 Act, which is taking advantage of that part of the Irish Constitution that says, for public order and moral good, there would be a slight restriction on free speech. So what does that mean? That means, in the interest of preserving people's life and physical safety, that you cannot call for, let's say, the genocide of a certain group of people. You can't call for the lynching of an individual person. You can't call for dangerous acts that are physically dangerous that could end someone's life.
Or like sedition, like we had on January 6th when they stormed the Capitol in America. You can't call for acts such as that to happen.
Yes, you have a moral order and a social order to preserve, and that's understandable. You don't want to live in a chaotic society. So calling for that kind of action, insurrection, you name it, that will have ramifications. So that's the kind of thing, that's the small space in which freedom of speech has a sort of a grey area where we say there's certain things you just cannot do because there's a much greater danger that would lead to chaos and anarchy and all of these.
Okay, and as a spokesperson for Free Speech Ireland, which was, by the way, started by students in UCC and University College Cork about 5 years ago, do you accept that there needs to be limitations then on absolute free speech, these caveats included, that you can't incite hatred to or violence and that kind of thing?
That's the law in the books. Mm-hmm. That's the 1989 Act. That's the Constitution.
Okay.
And that is the status quo. What we're looking at with this bill is a complete change of that.
So you would contend then that we have a law fit for purpose?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have a law fit for purpose.
Now, I'm going to ask you to explain what's coming down the track here, but Simon Harris, who's the interim Justice Minister, of course, Helen McEntee, is on maternity leave and I believe will return in about a month's time. But he's irked some of the most wealthy and famous people on the planet. It's not often we have a proposed law that irks the likes of Elon Musk, who called it insane, or a member of the Trump family, Donald Trump Jr., saying this is a slippery slope to the bottom. So this has got international attention. Why is that?
Well, I think what will be more of an issue for the Irish people is why hasn't it gotten national attention, given that this bill has been through the beginning stages of the Dáil last November. Our group was canvassing Helen McEntee's constituency and later went on to canvass Simon Harris's constituency. We've been trying to highlight this and bring this to the media attention for several months now. We've gotten cover from smaller outlets, but that's about it. This is one of the most stringent and massive overhauls of free speech in this country as we know it. And the journalist class of this country have not been speaking out on this issue. It took Elon Musk retweeting a tweet of ours for this suddenly to get media attention, for people to suddenly perk up and say, this is something serious. Why is someone like Elon Musk concerned? So you're absolutely right. Why is he concerned? Well, ultimately, a piece of legislation like this, while you're right, it did come from Helen McEntee's office and from the Ministry of Justice, excuse me, from the Department of Justice, rather. the issue is that this isn't a brainchild of that institution. This is being handed down from the European Council. This is the EU telling Ireland to get its hate speech laws in a particular, position. So this isn't something that the Irish people have asked for. This isn't something that our elected representatives have, ran on a ballot for. This is something that the establishment of the EU have told us to do, and that the majority of TDs in the Dáil have voted along with, and there is very little opposition to this.
So the cynics among us might contend then that this is something that's been orchestrated to protect the body politic.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a very important angle on this. I mean, Simon Harris had a comment, and he said that, I think it was before Christmas, he said instinctively migrant status should be part of the protected classes under this bill. And I'm more than happy to get into the protected classes that will be added to this. And this is a really crucial part. The 1989 piece of legislation protects people for any reason from incitement to violence, from incitement to the physical danger of you as a person or as a group of people. What they want to add to this is a subset of groups that means that the state and the NGOs that have lobbied the state for this bill, for inclusion under this bill, have managed to now put themselves in a position where they will have codified protections in law by the virtue of the fact that they are classified as certain groups. Wouldn't it be convenient for the state at a point in this point in the middle of, let's say, the housing crisis and other issues, to be able to classify certain things to stifle the debate on them? That's what we're looking at here, and that's what's really dangerous. Is that
okay.
There's going to be stifling of public debate.
Okay, but free speech is a fundamental tenet of democracy. And as long, and you say we are protected already by the 1989 Act, and as long as free speech does not incite hatred or violence, then we're pretty well protected. Now, we have seen a lot of uncomfortable situations where people have very strongly held beliefs against not only migrants, but asylum seekers, against ethnic minorities, against the LGBTQ community. I could go on. Are these elements of society, these cohorts, if you like, valid existing cohorts who should be, at one and integrated with society? Are these now going to be afforded extra protection under these new proposed laws? So lay out for me, if you will, who is going to get this extra protection that's being proposed?
Well, the irony is that might not even be completely clear. It's an attempt at that. But the definitions under this legislation, they're so terribly drafted that it's not even clear what some of the specific classifications are. One such protection is for incitement to hatred against sex characteristics. Now, I would love to know what that actually means, because that really could be absolutely anything. So we see these loose definitions around things, attempting to protect people in certain circumstances. But again, it's not about if someone, let's say the example you've given there, someone who has asylum status or a racial status or whatever, and that they're attacked on the basis of that, well, it will be the legislation that's on the books that will protect them. But if your physical danger, your physical safety or your life is in danger, you will go to the Gardaí right now and you will receive protection. That's the reality. This isn't about how safe people are physically. The 1989 Act is there to take care of that aspect. This is about public discussion on any issue whatsoever. And those groups that you mentioned, it is wonderful that they participate in the public square, that they voice their opinion for whatever issues they need to advocate for. But the point is that everyone should have that right, unqualified, to speak on an opinion. When we're not talking about violence, when we're not talking about a threat to someone's life, speech should be free.
Mm-hmm. Now, you can make, apparently, under these proposed rules, you can make a meme for yourself. And I'm saying this in the context of people being arrested at the coronation, right? Some are only holding up "Not My King" signs. Some of them got through on the world's media. Some of them were just taken away from them. Some of them arrested. Most of the signs broken. But some other protesters at the coronation were arrested while wearing hoodies over T-shirts. Now, they'd been identified by the powers that be as being potentially dangerous to the narrative of the day, but they were arrested without displaying anything, even though they were wearing what would be seen to be offensive T-shirts to the monarchy. underneath these hoodies. Are we walking down that slippery slope now? In fact, you could make a meme for yourself. You could consider it funny, and comedy is subjective. Others could consider it hateful. And you could have it on your phone and not share it with anyone. But if it comes to the attention of a Garda, you could face up to 5 years in jail.
That's absolutely right. That's currently as it stands in the draft bill right now. So you may have no intention to share a meme or any kind of comic or joke, anything that you have that's in your personal, your phone, your computer, whatever. You write it, you draft it, you maybe just look at it to laugh at it, and you've never shared it with anyone. If that, like you say, if the Gardaí or anyone has a reason to search your phone, search your possessions for any reason, and they may use other aspects of this act in order to get their hands on that, then you're in trouble. So if someone said, this person is inciting hatred against my sex characteristics. So we've seen examples of that.
But you're not inciting it if you don't broadcast it. You're holding a personally held opinion.
Well, this is the danger. If you were discussing, as I've seen many people do so in the UK, because the UK has strict hate speech laws in the books right now. This particular one that's proposed, by the way, is stricter, but the ones in the UK right now have people getting a knock from the UK police on their front door for a tweet, and a tweet that is exactly what we're describing.
You know what I find farcical here is, and I'm only using this as an example. I'm probably protected under the existing legislation if I say this statement, and I'm saying it only by example. I don't mean anything, okay? Women are better multitaskers and men are better drivers. If under the new legislation I say that, I could be in big trouble.
In theory. We have to also look at in theory. And maybe it's a perfect application of it, but is any prosecutor really going to come after you for a statement like that? They're probably not. But we're looking at the hot topic issues that can neatly fall under categories like sex identity, sex characteristics. And as many people know, and certainly in the last 2 years, there's been plenty of issues around the issues of transgenderism and people wanting a discussion about a hot topic that is what happens in public spaces such as bathrooms. Yeah, because
a comment like I've just mentioned would lead probably on a radio programme to generating debate. And debate is another tenet of democracy. If you can't debate and hold diametrically opposed positions and debate them, you don't really have a democracy. Very quickly, I've only got 30 seconds. This new law is coming in from the European Council, which is essentially designed to control the internet. But they seem to be the most draconian in Europe. Could you comment on that?
I would agree. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And the reason it's happening through the Irish laws in particular is because we have so many companies based here in Ireland. So if our legislation says this is the line, those companies will toe the line, which means it's not just the Irish public that's going to have to adhere to this. It will in effect be the European and possibly global standard by which free speech is conducted online.
And measured.
I think that's not very free at all.
Very good. Thanks, Sarah Hardiman, spokesperson for Free Speech Ireland. We'll come back to it after news at 10.